Hi there, Nicole. I wanted to talk with you a little bit more about the inclusion-exclusion criterion that I've come up with in terms of my methodology, and I actually thought it would be a little bit easier to talk it out and get your opinion. I'm sorry for the delay. I met with the MRP tutor a few times before we came up with where we're at, and it's just something to give you, to get some feedback on. Sorry. So there were some studies that I didn't want to let go of, even though technically speaking they did not fit my my initial inclusion criterion of just qualitative semi-structured interviews was the direction I was heading in. And these are peer-reviewed journal articles that focus on making changes to how research on disabled people and with disabled people is actually done. So utilizing support people, appropriate support people who are open to hearing answers that might make a typical person uncomfortable, for example, is often seen as potentially tainting the results of the study. But there have been studies done that allow for the inclusion of people who are typically less verbal or less able to comprehend, and that is a huge gap in the research, because most of the time studies actually need people who are highly verbal, regardless of what their diagnosis or intellectual ability may be. So I would like to stick with my idea of looking at Reddit posts, but also TikToks, because TikToks actually allowed for more inclusion of people with intellectual disabilities. But also looking at how things like social media can be incorporated in new styles of research, and actually see if I can advocate for changes to how research on disability and sexuality can be done, going in a more creative direction, more photo voice, poetry, dance, artistry, as opposed to just the typical quantitative questionnaire or qualitative semi-structured interviews, which can be very exclusionary for someone with a disability. So hopefully, if I'm being clear, what I would like to do is look at the conversations that are being had on social media by people with disabilities around sex and relationships, and advocate that these conversations are could be better captured in the research by using newer methods of collecting research, like video journaling, for example. Hopefully that makes sense. The secondary possibility that I came up with, I'm really more excited about this idea of using my thesis to advocate for changes in how research is done, but I was initially looking at this idea for my inclusion-exclusion criterion, focused largely on semi-structured interviews, and divide it by subtype, intellectual or developmental, and physical disability, and look at a Venn diagram across the research of what is being reported and what is different across diagnoses and what is similar, and in terms of what their self-reported experience is. So those are the two paths that I am considering, and that is the inclusion-exclusion criterion that I currently have. I don't know if... I hope that I have been clear enough to give you something to work with. I'm sorry for the delay. I've been fighting with a couple of bouts of strep throat a little bit, but hopefully this will give us something to work from, and I will see you on Monday. Take care.